Hello, econ students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have notes for Chapter 5, Section 1. What is supply? So, what is supply? Well, the law of supply states that suppliers will normally offer more items for sale at a higher price and less items for sale at a lower price. This is a kind of a good illustration down here at the bottom. So when prices go up, usually the quantity supplied goes up. They kind of mirror each other. And when price goes down, if I'm a supplier, I'm going to have less items for supplied at that price. So if you remember the law of supply, uh, price and quantity were like an inverse relationship. When one went up, the other went down, and vice versa. Whereas in the law of supply, they're not inverse. They're actually going the same direction. So if I'm looking at these laws, the law of supply is really one that benefits those people who are business people, the store owners and such. When price goes up, I'm definitely going to want to sell more of whatever I've got. And if price goes down, I probably don't want to sell as much for sale because I want to make a profit. And hence, I'm going to kind of wait until maybe the market turns. So when we look at the following terms here, these are going to look a little similar to what we talked about with the law of demand, but we have supply schedules, supply curves, and a market supply curve. So anytime we're talking about a supply curve or a supply schedule, excuse me, we're looking at kind of a chart. It shows the various quantities of a particular product supplied at all the possible prices within the market. It's a nice way to look at the numbers. You can kind of see it maybe in that format. When we look at a curve, it's more of a graphic illustration. So it shows again the various quantities supplied at all possible prices that might prevail within the market. The big difference is it's an illustration. Okay, your market supply curve is basically kind of the same thing as the supply curve, with the exception that it's showing the quantities offered at various prices by everyone that happens to be offering that product in the market. So when you go to price check things on sites like Amazon, really you're kind of getting the market supply price, by all the people who are out there offering product for sale within that platform. But when we talk about the shifting of the supply curve or the change in the supply schedule, we've got to think about one particular thing. Quantity supplied really responds to a change in price. So when price goes up or price goes down, that's really going to determine how much is going to be offered for sale at any given price. So what might cause the supply curve to shift to the left? And, if you're looking at the curve itself, that would be moving from supply curve one to this new one that's in the red. That means that less is going to be offered for sale at all possible prices. Okay. If we would have a situation where maybe price would go up as a supplier, I'm going to see if I can sell more of that. And you're going to see a shift maybe moving towards the right. But needless to say, that's something that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I've got an illustration I'm going to show you, but there are 7 factors that determine whether supply increases or decreases. And that can be the cost of the resource. So if we're talking about like inputs that you would need to produce a particular product, so if I'm like a farmer and I'm concerned about my fuel prices and my cost for fertilizer and my seeds and the wear and tear on my equipment, that's all part of that. If something will go up, that's going to make a big difference of how much is going to be supplied. Productivity, how productive can I be in producing that product? So if I can make a lot of it very quickly and with a lot of efficiency, that might make a difference between that and maybe something that I can't produce a lot of a product. That might mean that the price is going to have to be set higher because of the fact that it's kind of in a natural shortage state. Technology. What kind of technology goes into the production of this product? Um, that could be producing it, it could be shipping it as well. Taxes and subsidies. Is this product something that the government taxes a little bit more, or is the government offering maybe a tax incentive, meaning some relief? That might make a difference on how much is produced. When we talk about subsidies, particularly in agriculture, if a product is subsidized, will that again make an impact of how much is being produced by the producer? Expectations. This is something more a consumer has. When I go in and I buy a certain brand name, can I expect that I'm going to get quality time and time again? Or maybe by using that product for a long, long time, I've grown kind of bored with it, and maybe my expectations aren't as high. Those things can impact how much is supplied to the market. Government regulations, is this a product that is kind of dangerous or that the government doesn't want to have a lot of it out there? That might make an impact on how much is supplied. Then the number of suppliers. If we have a monopoly situation where there's only one supplier, price is probably going to be higher. Whereas if we have lots and lots of sellers out there in the market, price is probably going to be pushed down a little bit lower because there's always going to be competition. And competition is great if you're a consumer, but maybe not so much if you're the producer. So we have some examples here from your book. We have supply curves for two different firms and then the market supply. If you look at the first graph here for firm A, you'll see with letter A, like you might have a seller that's willing to offer 4 CDs for sale at $15, whereas the other firm in the market might offer only 2 CDs for sale at $15. And then if you look at what the market might say, they might offer, on average 6 CDs for sale at that price. So, needless to say, we're always kind of looking at what the market has to say about price and quantity. Elasticity. What is supply elasticity? And this is a measure of the way in which quantity supplied responds to a change in price. Very similar to when we talked about elasticity with demand. There are times when the curve is going to move very quickly, and a lot of it is a factor of price and such. So, what characterizes an inelastic supply curve? Inelastic supply curves is kind of like this one in letter B. The line itself is a little more vertical, whereas an elastic curve is a little more horizontal. Um, a great example of supply inelasticity, there are certain products that you're going to buy and it doesn't matter what the price is. So I've heard like table salt as being one that's very inelastic. But nevertheless, this is proportionally smaller change in quantity supplied. In other words, um, we're probably not going to change the amount that we're going to offer with a change in price. Whereas a price that or an item that is very price elastic, um, certainly price and any kind of change that could happen out in the market would certainly have a big impact on what's going to be offered for sale at any particular price. So, what changes does a unit elastic supply curve show? This is kind of letter C here. It shows the proportional change in quantities supplied. So, it's going to show you maybe kind of more of an average of what's going to happen within the market itself. It's for the most part maybe a little more stable than just plain elastic supply curves. But needless to say, it can kind of give you maybe an indication of where the market is going. So I'm going to give you some examples here. And rather than you charting this out up on the board, I'm just going to kind of show you maybe where this would go. But we have a supply schedule and we have various prices from $5 by $5 increments, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 for various items that are going to be supplied. And you can see one of our schedules isn't going to offer anything for sale at $5 because that's pretty cheap. Maybe our other firm is going to offer maybe 3 items for sale at 5, and obviously we're probably more willing as a seller to offer more for sale at a much higher price because obviously somebody's going to make a profit. So if we would take items that are in that supply curve for the supply schedule, and plot those out. This is kind of what it's going to look like as a curve, so that you can see, where it's going. As we look at the second supply curve, you can see that it has kind of a movement basically towards the right, which is for the most part indicating that we have an increase in supply. And so, as a supplier, I'm probably going to definitely consider offering more for sale if I can make more money off of that. Thank you very much.